From Relay FM. No, I'm not doing that.
You should do it.
I don't have the energy. I don't have the energy the way that you do it or the way that Myke does it.
It's only the way I do it. Steven doesn't do it. He just says hello and welcome.
It's the way that you start with the from, and I really don't have that kind of energy in the summer. It's too hot.
But this is one of those things where you do a thing and people remember you for that thing even after you stop doing it.
TJ says, "Make it weird, Federico."
Because I don't do the loud from anymore. I haven't done that in a long time because everyone made fun of me. But people still think that I do it, even though I don't do it. I still say from Relay FM, but like I don't do the from, which is what I did for a while. I don't do that anymore.
Maybe you could do from Relay FM.
Well, what I've been doing recently is what I'd started doing was I just modulate it all over the place. From Relay FM is stuff like that I do now. So like you put the emphasis on the different syllable.
Interesting.
Can we actually start the show now?
Anyway, yes.
From Relay FM, this is Connected, episode 304. You feel the energy, guys? Are we ready?
No.
This is very, very unusual.
Would you have a Coke today or something?
You sound like a NASCAR announcer.
And coming around corner 3, we have our sponsors, Pingdom and ExpressVPN.
Do you really have any idea what a NASCAR's announcer would sound like?
Wait, which one of us?
Federico.
Me or him?
Well, I've seen movies where NASCAR is mentioned, and I have a general idea of what a NASCAR announcer should sound like the kind of person that it also would be. Yeah.
Tell me more about that kind of person.
Nope, don't do that.
Well, I imagine like a fat white guy with holding an hamburger in one hand and a microphone in the other. So basically, please stop me here.
No,
I'm stopping
I want to know more.
So, coming around corner number 2, it is Mr. Federico Vitici.
Hello. Hi.
I hate this so much.
Wait, just to make sure this is a regular episode, right? This is actually going up on the internet. Okay, hi. Thanks for having me after all these years, despite the things I say.
And recovering from his crash coming out of pit row, we have Myke Hurley.
You know a lot of terminology over there, don't you?
Pit row?
Are you secretly a NASCAR? I mean, you live in the South. Are you secretly NASCAR?
At ease doing this.
Yeah,
Steven.
I know, right? It's like immediately, just pulling all this language out. It is just very serious. Felt like he really knew what he was doing. Are you a secret NASCAR fan?
I wouldn't keep that secret, but no, I'm not really a NASCAR fan. It is interesting that everyone, including you, Myke, are F1 fans all of a sudden because it's the only thing on TV.
No. My F1 fandom came before because of the documentary.
Oh, so you're an F1 hipster.
Not that long. This was going to be my first season that I was going to watch because I really liked the Netflix documentary Drive to Survive.
Wait, what are we talking about here?
Formula One.
Are you a Formula One person now?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Since when?
Since the beginning of the season, which was now like a month or two ago.
Is there a season happening?
Yeah, there is, yeah. Yeah, they started it like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
You know what the season's called? The Summer of F1! Like the Summer of Fun, but F1 kind of smashed together.
They start usually in March. Formula One was one of the first sports to close down because they actually had a confirmed coronavirus case the day before the first season, so they shut it down. And
one of the cars gets sick?
Nope, it's one of the many people that work on F1. So yeah, I've been starting to watch that, and I really enjoy it.
Interesting. I really struggle with sports. Like with following sport,
Me too. But this one works for me. The reason it works is that the documentary kind of enlightened me to the fact that there's a ton of drama around it, which is fun. There's only 20 drivers, so it's not a million people you have to keep up with. It's 10 teams. Every team has 2 drivers. That's it. And the sport itself, the races themselves, they're done in an hour and a half. That's it. There's no halftime.
I'm familiar with how an F1 thing works. It's just I struggle with sports in general because I struggle watching something that I will not be able to compete in the future. Like I watch competitive Pokemon because then I can also compete and win or lose.
So it's the opposite of why I like the Winter Olympics.
No, but television. You don't have a problem with television shows.
Yeah,
though, right?
yeah, no, stop. He watches stuff that he can partake in. I watch stuff that I specifically cannot partake in. We're opposites.
But you could play basketball.
But I can't ski down a mountain at 100 miles an hour, so I prefer the Winter Olympics.
But you watch basketball.
Sure. Well, it's not a universal rule.
And you have like a football season tickets, and you can play both of those sports. So it's not the same.
True.
You just have a weird thing about the Olympics.
I do like the Winter Olympics.
Congratulations. But I'm intrigued about this, Federico. Does it extend to all types of media? Or is it just sports?
No, because media, like TV shows or movies, they have a story to tell. So you tune in to know about the story. It's a form of entertainment. Whereas sports, my problem with it is that it's presented as entertainment to you, but you are not. Like, there's no story. It's just something happening out of your control. And also the thing that I really dislike is that those people make a lot of money and you don't as an audience member. And like, so, and it's also always kind of funny when I hear people, so soccer, obviously it's the big thing here in Italy. And when people, like when they root for a specific team and they say something like, oh, we won or we lost. Oh, you didn't lose. Like,
I don't like that.
Those people are
like
making millions of money every single day. And you're like, you're still broke.
I know that this is a very normal thing in all sports, and like that people refer to their team as we. I'm sure Steven does it about the teams that he follows in competitive sports too. But I've never liked that. It doesn't make sense to me, like the we-ness of it.
I don't know, and just especially again with soccer. So the example that I have here in Italy, just
I wish you'd call it football. I wish you'd call it football.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you.
I would call it football, but then Americans say, "Oh, American football." No, it's not American
because
football.
that's American football.
Okay, so football.
And then the actual football game is called football.
And European football.
It's American football and football.
The general animosity surrounding that. Like people getting upset when they talk about it. You don't hear people, well, except maybe for Star Wars but you don't hear people getting upset about movies or TV shows.
Yeah.
Like
this is another reason why why Formula One works for me, because I agree with all of these things that you're saying, right? But like,
so Formula One is different, maybe
because like
check it out.
There's like teams and individuals, and the individuals move around so much to different teams that to me at least feels a little bit difficult to be like, oh, I love this team. Well, there are teams because there's I kind of like want multiple people to do well. So typically, no matter who wins, there's always someone that I really like who did really well in that race, because I have like 4 different drivers out of the 20 that I want to see succeed. So, and plus there is a lot of drama in the sport as well, like that goes on, which is interesting to follow. And there's, I like it. It works for me. It really works for me as a sport because it doesn't have a lot of the trappings that I typically do not enjoy about sports. So
interesting. So
if you have any interest at all, even like a sliver, you should watch the Netflix documentary Drive to Survive, because it is also just a very, very good documentary. And I was hooked, like absolutely hooked. So I recommend it.
Interesting.
Start there. It's a classy sport too, Federico. So I feel like you'd enjoy that.
Yeah, really. The main thing I dislike is the team-based culture surrounding all kinds of sports. And I do appreciate a good athlete in isolation, like seeing somebody do something incredible on the field. Like, I don't know, Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Like, I can appreciate that. But then when you reach the entertainment territory and the culture about, fans and teams, and I really dislike that.
It doesn't really, I mean, like, of course there are people that follow teams, right, in Formula One, but it doesn't feel as die-hard as other team-based sports, where there's like large teams or whatever, and also just that don't be a fan of Ferrari right now would be my recommendation to you, Federico. I know it's going to be upsetting, but they're doing really bad. So
honestly, I don't really care.
Okay, but like you say about like it's fun to watch when there's a single person who's very good. So you know who Lewis Hamilton is, right? You must be familiar with him.
He's in the musical.
Is the driver, right? Is the driver?
Yeah, the driver. He is about to equal the records, and is starting to equal many, but like this year will probably equal the record for being the best ever. So like
Nice.
he's about to cross over to becoming the best ever. So like if that kind of thing interests you, that is happening right now in Formula One, right? That there is someone who is about to become the best ever at the sport. So, you know, like that idea of like there being standout individuals like Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Lewis Hamilton is another one of them. So
You want to do some follow-up?
yeah.
No, wait, have you done the intro, by the way?
Yeah, I introduced you.
Yeah, it was in a NASCAR voice. So, Steven, so what I'll say is if you did not enjoy any of the last 10 minutes of the show, you have Steven to blame.
That's a bold statement.
You started with the NASCAR voice.
No, you said NASCAR first.
I never said anything about NASCAR. Maybe Federico said it, but I had nothing to do
Federico
with it.
did. It's Federico's fault.
Always.
So, follow up, more about my photo situation. I've conducted a Twitter poll, and it's something.
So, all right, I have. This is the thing. Well, I have written this in a document as Steven attempts to try and prove why his system of albums is good. I think Steven posted the following poll on Twitter. What is the primary way you organize your photo library? And he gave the following 4 answers: albums, tags, faces, or I let an app do it for me. Now, I believe that when Steven posted this, he was hoping that he was going to win and albums were going to be prevalent. So not only is it in 34% of the vote with I let an app do it for me at 52% of the vote, I actually have a problem with I let an app do it for me.
Because I don't use an app. I just use the photos thing on my device.
What would you call that? What would you call that icon you tap that has content in it?
No, because what most people are doing, which is what I do and what Federico does, is I don't care about sorting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you let the app do it for you.
No, because it's not about sorting.
The 4th option should it just be either I don't or none of the above. Like, or maybe just I don't. Like, I don't organize my photo library. And
even
also,
with your poor questioning where you're trying to lead the witness, you are being proved as wrong
it was
here.
very odd phrasing with an ulterior motive, Stephen. Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I'll win in the Electoral College.
This is exactly the kind of thing that a NASCAR announcer would do.
The kind of shady guy that holds an hamburger and the microphone with the other hand.
You gotta stop.
And drips hamburger sauce on his shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yep,
for sure.
I dripped it in the microphone. Yeah, there's burger sauce in the microphone.
Stop saying burger sauce.
So, basically, are you going to concede that albums is not as popular as you thought it was?
Look, just because something is popular doesn't mean that it's right.
Why have you done a poll then? If you didn't care about popular opinion,
because if it had worked in my favor,
then it would have been. Then popularity would have won.
Yeah, it would have been great. So I will say, in the members episode of Mac Power Users that comes out on Sunday, David Sparks really just took me to task about this.
Good. I'm pleased that David allowed this to cross over into your serious podcast.
Yeah. And so we'll see how this goes.
Hold on a second. I want to talk about those 29 people. The 1.8% of the
1% of photo minutes.
Those 29 people who organize their photos with tags. I'm really
as their primary way.
As their primary way. Like, there are 29 people who follow you, Steven, or may have come across this poll on Twitter, who chose to answer that their primary way to organize their photo library is via tags. Now,
I don't even know what that means.
I am genuinely curious to hear what this means. So if you are among that group of 29.03 people, please get in touch with Steven for the show.
We have the poll creator right here with us now. What did you mean by tags? What's a tag in photo management?
In photos, you can apply tags or keywords.
Where?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, on the Mac version. You can't do it on the stupid iOS version.
Oh, geez. See, like, you try and like rig everything in your favor.
Well, do you go home and you plug in your digital camera? And
I sort my photos by EXIF data only.
Look at my digital hub. I'm Steve Jobs.
I use folders in Finder primarily.
I did do that for a long time. As did you, Myke. So shut your mouth.
No. That was a secondary backup solution. It was not my sorting. So why don't you shut your mouth? which is apparently where we go on this show now. I add descriptions in the photos.app photo on my application on my Macintosh
captions is actually a thing I'm going to have to write about this summer.
Look, I've got a Mac Pro, and I might as well apply thousands of keywords with it to make it earn its keep, you know? It's got to justify this expense somehow.
Is that how you do it?
I don't know. Ask my CPA at the end of the year.
So anyway, tags you can add in Photos for Mac, and once you add a tag, it can become like a filtering thing for, okay.
And it shows up in search as a token for search. So if, like say that there's a photo with no other data and there's a tag, it would still show up when you search for that relevant term.
Okay. What is captions in iOS 14?
Captions, you can swipe up on a photo and you can add like a description for that photo. And those will sync between devices. I'm not sure. I think I've seen somewhere, but I still have to test it. It's in my mind map somewhere that you can also search for the contents of those captions. So like if you have a photo, I don't know, of a trip to Paris and you want to add a description and say, oh, this was like a good cappuccino that I had in Paris, then later you can search for those keywords in the caption and the caption will sync between devices. It's not something that
How do you access this functionality?
You swipe up on a photo, so you open Photos.
Oh, that's really not... It's like, okay, it appears underneath the image.
Underneath the image, and you can add a caption there. And so, I don't know, let's see. I'm going to add a caption, Ginger looking at the camera while sitting on the bed. So this is a caption. It's quite useless. But if I search then for sitting, it will not find the photo. So,
well, I mean, there's a possibility that it has to index those.
Oh, yes, it says indexing. It's indexing.
It won't be instant.
It's a single photo. It's indexing.
It's just 5 words. God, you got to run the Siri intelligence on those first.
You do you photos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will, very slowly.
I have some exciting news I'd like to share with y'all. It's actually an announcement.
Oh,
right here.
Okay.
Yeah. So today, like right now, as I'm speaking, I am launching a new podcast with our friend Quinn Rose.
It's a NASCAR podcast.
Yes, it's called Driving in Circles. No. It is called Bear Left, Right Frog. It's over on The Incomparable. And what we're doing is once a month, Quinn and I are watching a Muppet film and talking about it. So we just started with 1979's The Muppet Movie. We'll be going in chronological order. So in August, we'll have an episode up about the next Muppet movie, and then the one after that, and the one after that, until we're done.
I wonder if there'll be a new Muppet movie by the time you're done.
I don't think there's one currently in the works.
I think they're making a TV show for HBO Max or something.
They are doing a TV show, which is outside of the scope of this.
Well, this is very fun. I'm a big fan of Quinn, the original Quinn.
Yes.
So I'm always pleased to hear more Quinn programs. I am not a Muppet person, though. I've seen a couple, like Christmas Carol and stuff. So maybe this... well, here's my question for you. Will I enjoy these movies if I've never seen them before? But if I've never seen them before, like if I didn't have them when I was a kid?
I think so.
Okay.
I will say the older ones, like the ones we're watching now, they have a lot of references that like are very 1979 that we had to look up. So maybe... I think what I would recommend...
Oh, I have also seen the modern one, the modern Muppet movie, which I really enjoyed with
I would
Jason
say watch
Segel.
both modern Muppet movies. So there's 2. And then I would go from there, I would go with like the remake. So like Muppet Treasure Island and Muppet Christmas Carol are good. Muppet Treasure Island is one of my favorites.
I've seen Christmas Carol. I've seen the modern one with Jason Segel, the first one.
Yeah, there's one after that Tina Fey's in.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
It's good. Muppet Treasure Island is also very funny. That's one of my favorites.
Muppets Most Wanted.
Yes. That's the
I've
newest
seen this
one.
too, I think. Ricky Gervais is in it. Yes, I've seen this one. Huh, okay. Well, at least there's a few episodes that I'll listen to.
I'm very happy for you, Steven, but this is one of those times that sometimes happen when I'm in California for WWDC, when suddenly you guys start talking about something that is so culturally distant from me that I have no idea what you guys are talking about, and that's when I usually grab my phone and text Sylvia or something.
There was a funny thing earlier where was this today where Federico was trying to explain what Muppets he knew about, and they were all Sesame Street characters, I think.
I just know Big Bird. I'm a big fan of Big Bird as a character in
Concept.
general,
Okay.
as a concept. Yes, I just think the concept of a big bird is
Big
really
yellow bird.
fascinating. A big yellow bird is really really awesome.
Do you know the name of his friend? Snuffleupagus. And he's a mammoth, a big purple mammoth.
No idea what you're talking about.
I know, right?
He's not purple.
Isn't he purple?
I know.
No,
Cookie,
he's like a long-haired brown elephant type.
I know
situation.
Cookie Monster. Is Cookie Monster a Muppet?
Yes. Well, one of the Sesame Street characters, right?
Okay.
But they're all technically Muppets.
Sesame Street characters are like a subset of Muppets.
Oh, so it's not like all inhabitants of Sesame Street are Muppets in the same way that all people who live on Earth are people.
It's complicated because they're technically one and the same, but they're also not like canonical Muppets.
Interesting. Okay. Well, the artwork looks really good, Steven.
It's really good. A
It
friend
really
of
does
Quinn's
look
did
like
it.
you. It really does look like you.
Yeah. I love the artwork, and I'm super excited. So this is now my second show on The Incomparable. I also do Somehow I Manage with Tiff Arment, where we are rewatching The Office.
Ah, that one
which
I
is
know.
a lot of fun. Yeah.
The
Yeah,
one-
there's not Muppets on that one.
Very nice.
Let's take a break, and then we're going to talk about new iOS betas. How's that? This episode of Connected is brought to you by Pingdom from SolarWinds. Well, you've been listening to this podcast thinking about Muppets and NASCAR. We're a tech podcast. It's very strange. How would you know if your website had gone down? How would you know if your customers couldn't be clicking that Buy Now button or accessing your content? You could stumble across the problem by luck, but you need a system. You need something to tell you that everything is running smoothly on your site, and more importantly, when it's not, you need Pingdom. It detects around 13 million outages every month. That's more than 400,000 outages every day. Pingdom helps keep your sites and the sites you love, like one Relay FM, keeping them online. It doesn't matter if you're a startup or a Fortune 500 company, you need alerts about critical website issues. Pingdom lets you customize how you're alerted depending on the severity of the outage. Plus, they track and analyze your website's load times, so you can see what elements may be affecting user experience. If you have a site of any size, you need Pingdom. They have a no-fuss approach to getting started. All they need is the URL you want to monitor, and they take care of the rest. So go to pingdom.com/relayfm right now for a 14-day free trial with no credit card required. And when you sign up, use the code CONNECTED at checkout to get a huge 30% off your first invoice. Our thanks to Pingdom from SolarWinds for the support of the show and Relay FM. All right, so iOS 14 Beta 3/public Beta 2 are here, and there's a lot of changes. I think more changes than I anticipated for a Beta 3.
Oh, did public Beta 2 come out as well?
I think it came out just as we sat down to record.
And it's based on Beta 3?
Must be.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yep, here it is on 95 Mac.
Nice.
So what are some of these changes, Federico? I know you were really excited about the music stuff.
Essentially, like most of the things in this beta, I dislike. And also, this beta is quite buggy, I should say, especially in Notes. Like, I'm having all kinds of issues with the keyboard not appearing in Notes. So it's not surprising. Usually, every other beta in the summer is problematic. So anyway, music, there's a new icon for the music app, and the widget color has changed as well to match the icon. So the icon has gone from a white background with a multicolor gradient glyph to an I was gonna call it orange, or I don't know, is it really orange? Some kind of orange / pink /
like
salmon
salmon, like,
maybe.
It looks like the pinkish iPhone 5C.
Kind of like
It's like
that.
the same hue.
Isn't that coral?
Coral, yes. Also, that's a
Coral.
good. Yeah.
Coral.
Coral. Sure, we'll go with that. And there's a white glyph on top of it. Very simple white glyph. I strongly dislike
I
it.
hate it. It's so boring.
Isn't this just the iOS 7 music icon?
Well, it's even not as complex as that, because I believe that the iOS 8 maybe music icon had some kind of gradient going on, a more pronounced gradient that made it look like somebody actually cared and spent more than 20 minutes doing the icon. Instead, this one is just, let's take a color and put a white glyph on top of it. It doesn't I really dislike it because it doesn't have any personality, just a color and a white glyph. And the old icon, while being, yes, another white icon, at the very least, the music glyph contained inside the icon had the Apple Music brand colors.
That's exactly it, right? Like the previous version felt like a brand.
Yeah.
This just feels like the music stock app on the iPhone, which it was before. It's strange. I find it very peculiar.
It's very strange, and isn't the whole point to sell people on Apple Music? And I'm sure that seeing those colors, and you see them on the Apple website, you see it in advertisements, you see it in a bunch of places, then you see them on your phone, and you think, that's Apple Music. And so maybe if you're not a subscriber, I don't know. Anyway, it's a very boring icon. But what's even worse, in my opinion, is what happened to the widget. Now, the widget has the same color, the music widget in iOS 14, has the same background color of this icon. So it's a coral widget now. Coral widget. The issue with that is that text, white text on top of a coral background is kind of tricky to read. So legibility has gone way down, especially for the caption. So in the compact layout, for example, in the small widget, the name of the artist is in a lighter font. And I find that really hard to read against an orange background. Also, some music artworks are going to clash with this coral background, because before Apple had this relatively neutral white background for the widget, and you could, you use a drop shadow around the artwork, you can be sure that everything is gonna look good on top of it because it's just a basic white background. But with this orange stuff, some music albums that have a cover that is like multicolor and that has multiple shades of orange or red or yellow, they're gonna look kind of ugly on top of an orange widget. So two main problems. I don't understand why it was necessary to move away from the brand colors, and two, three main issues. Two, this is boring, and three, the widget is now problematic because it's less readable than before, and certain music album artworks are gonna look ugly on top of the new widget. So I don't get it. I don't understand why this was necessary. Maybe it's one of those tests. Sometimes Apple does it to sort of gauge people's reaction to a visual change, and then they're gonna revert it in the next version. I really hope this is the case, but I'm not feeling optimistic about this one, guys, because they also changed the icon on the Mac. So Big Sur also has or should I say Big Sur also has the new icon with the new Big Sur style.
El Grande Sur.
El Grande Sur. Yes. El Grande Sur. So some people are surprised that jiggle mode is now officially mentioned by Apple in official copy in iOS 14. There's a new alert that pops up in iOS 14 Beta 3 when you first open the Today page for widgets. That basically explains if you want to add new widgets, you need to long press on the screen to enter jiggle mode. And jiggle mode as a joke on Twitter has sort of made a resurgence since WWDC, since Craig Federighi uttered the word or the expression again. It's not really new. It's something that like a bunch of people have always called the jiggle mode. Steve Jobs called the jiggle mode like 10 years ago. It's like I've always referred to that either as jiggle mode or wiggling mode, one of the two.
I think the reason that people are bringing it up, and even why I put it in the document, is seeing it written in
Sure, it's fun. It's
text
kind of
on
funny.
the iPhone.
It's kind of funny.
It's not only funny, but I think that's not happened before.
No, that's not happened before. So yes, it made its way to official copy inside iOS. So yeah, I'll give you that.
Because it's like, I don't know what else they've called it, but I know they've called it other things, right? Like
I think it was called rearrange mode.
Yeah, like, or what, but that that they've mentioned it in a bunch of ways, I'm sure, in the past. But this seems to be like, this is what they're calling it, which, I mean, honestly, it does make sense. Like, the reason people refer to it, like Steve on stage, as jiggle mode is because that's what's happening. It's jiggling. Sure. Everything's jiggling.
Getting jiggly.
Honestly, I think jiggle mode shouldn't exist anymore anyway. Like, I think that it's a little played at this point. But I don't know what you'd replace it with. Yeah, just something like that. Like, everything jiggling around seems so peculiar in an operating system which is otherwise pretty devoid of things like this now. Like, these types of like playful animations don't really exist in other places. Like, there are elegant animations, there are pleasant to look at animations, but this is very much the company that like created the genie minimization thing for the dock
and slow motion mode for it.
Yeah, and but Apple doesn't really do that stuff anymore. Really, like, you can argue as to whether you want them to do it, but my point is that like this kind of feels like a last bastion of an old ideal that they haven't changed. Do you think I'm talking out like off base here?
Yeah, it could be one last concession to that ideal of having that sort of like whimsy in user interfaces. Maybe to an extent they have brought it back in other places. Like, there are some playful transitions here and there.
Like, I do miss that kind of stuff, right? Like a lot of people, because I am nostalgic for it.
Sometimes it was a little too much, like shredding a pass in wallet. Like, yeah.
It's why I'm mostly okay with the fact that time is over, because it does get like
get out of hand
overwhelming.
Quickly.
You feel like you're cutting through the operating system with a chainsaw at times, right? Like, trying to get anything done because it's so like everything's so thick. But it's just like a funny thing to see. So we know that the hand washing reminders, not reminders, like the hand washing things come into WatchOS 7, where like it can like recognize if you're washing your hands and start doing a 20-second countdown. They've added a feature. I've seen it referenced in the settings on iOS, but it's obviously for WatchOS, that I actually really like, which is a hand washing reminder based on location. So if you get home and your watch has not detected that you've washed your hands, it will say, hey, wash your hands. I think this is a really clever way of adding functionality to that feature, because just detecting if I am washing my hands and then counting the 20 seconds is not really enough to do what you might want to be monitoring for, which like is I want my devices to be able to maybe tell me like, don't forget. And this is a great one, right? That if I get home and it hasn't detected that I've washed my hands, then one of two things has happened. Either A, I haven't, or B, I didn't do it well enough. And so I think that's kind of cool. I have not put WatchOS 7 on any of my watches. Federico, have you done that? I only have one watch. I don't know why I said any of my watches. I haven't put it on all. Have you tried it?
Yeah, it's on my watch right now.
What do you think about this feature?
Well, it looked okay initially, and I had to disable it after a few hours because it was picking up hand washing movements for all kinds of movements in my life, from grating cheese to just doing chores around the house.
I was going to say, like we all know about Italians, you're very hand gestury when you talk. You're just having a conversation. It's like, hey, you're washing your hands. It's like, no, I'm just upset.
It was like it was coming up constantly. And so I don't think it's very good, honestly.
Well, I think it's fair to say that this is a feature that is much newer from idea to implementation than probably other features in the operating system. So maybe it will get better over the beta period, right? Like you got to assume that nobody had this idea until maybe April, late March, April.
Even though Apple is on the record saying that no, we actually thought of this before, I don't believe them personally.
What they thought of a 20-second hand washing monitor thing before COVID?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
they have an interview on CNET, I believe, saying that all the hand washing stuff, they actually thought about it for years.
Then why did it take them so long for then?
Well, a pandemic, I guess. What a coincidence, right?
I don't. Look, this might be, and again, like you can make that point however you want. Someone might have suggested it years ago, and they got told no, that's not important, right? Because like otherwise, why else did this take years?
Right.
I haven't read this article.
And
I
also,
didn't even know it existed.
I mean, it's really based on some fascinating tech. Like they're doing. They're applying machine learning to sound analysis to pick up sounds like the soapy sound of like rinsing your hands and they mention, like in this interview, the particular sound signature that soap has, and of course the sound of running water and the sound of you rubbing your hands together. Like they're doing all this extra stuff. It's not just the accelerometer detecting a particular kind of hand motion. It's like there's all this entire like software based layer on top of it, which I think is really fascinating. It's just very bad right now.
So I think that this is being misquoted. So let me give you what I'm talking about here, right? Unlike other this is from a TechCrunch article, unlike other rush initiatives undertaken by the company once the virus hit, the forthcoming Apple Watch hand washing app wasn't built overnight. The feature was the result of years of work. Now, I think that means in all of the underlying technology that allowed for this to occur, right? Because they had to make this technology for other things, right? For like the swimming or whatever. I genuinely do not believe that 3 years ago someone was like, we need to build a hand washing timer into
I'm
Apple
very
Watch.
skeptical too, which is, yeah, exactly.
Like, I completely agree with the fact that it has taken multiple years of work on Apple Watch sensors to enable this technology, but they're two different things.
Yeah.
That's my thinking on this one. So.
Yeah. So anyway, it's not very good right now. Anyway, it's really not very good, despite all the machine learning and stuff. So I will try it again at some point.
So if they have worked on it for years, maybe another year.
I mean, why not add an extra couple of years?
Another one
while you're at it, just whatever. Anyway,
you got to wash all the bugs out of there.
Sure.
You're saying.
Back to iOS 14 Beta 3.
That was a good joke.
You weren't appreciating in your time.
That's right.
Yeah, just like Michael. There's another new widget. This is part of the widgets that were shown off at WWDC, but they were not actually included in Beta 1. So first came Files in Beta 2, and now it's the time for the Clock widget. Now, there's a clock widget. It comes in 3 sizes. I believe it's 3 sizes, or is it 2 sizes? Well, you can have a small analog clock on your home screen, or you can have a larger widget showing you multiple analog clocks for the times of different cities around the world. And like other widgets in iOS 14, you can configure the widget by entering the settings page for the widget and picking different cities. So it's all very nice and very useful. However, I also have issues with this one. And let me tell you a very quick story of Federico, which is me, tweeting about this issue and being called stupid more or less directly by a bunch of people on Twitter. I noted how, while great and very useful to have this clock widget, very good example of the kind of dynamic and glanceable things that widgets enable now. Some people, like me, may have difficulties reading, and I use this expression because it was very important, at a glance time with an analog clock, with the hands moving and stuff. And I said I would welcome a digital option where I can just, again, glance at the numbers, which I find easier to read. And a lot of people were really upset at me. And for example, some guy told me that the Italian education system failed me because I couldn't read analog clocks. And it was, some very unfunny people on Twitter pointing out that, if you cannot read an analog clock, you're essentially an uneducated person. So I stand by my statement that analog clocks are, by definition, slower to read at a glance because you need to do, they come with this latency of looking at a shape and making sense of that shape. And I stand by my belief that a lot of people who didn't grow up wearing watches or looking at an analog clock on the wall would very much welcome a digital option. Which is also why on your phone, on your lock screen, you don't have clock hands, you have the time spelled out with numbers.
Yeah, I am a person who much prefers the visuals of an analog watch face, right? So like I wear watches with hands and numbers on a dial because I like the way that looks. But I agree with you that a digital readout is easier to understand, and it has less ambiguity in certain circumstances, depending on if you use the 24-hour clock or not. I am a proponent of the 24-hour clock, but that's like a different thing for another time. If you're going to go digital, however, like I agree with you, right? Like whether you or anybody has a harder time of reading digital or analog, I don't really know if that's necessarily the has to be argued. The point is what you're getting at is true. Like it should be a digital option because it is easier to read at a glance. You are using a computer, right? Like these showing a readout in numbers rather than trying to emulate hands of a face it makes more sense in a lot of circumstances. Like I don't know why they've owned, maybe it will come, it should, but like just having a analog option for these clock widgets seems peculiar to me.
Yeah. So Stephen, do you have any thought as the resident old person here? Do you have any thoughts?
Stephen would prefer a sundial.
Man, sundials are cool. Sundials are really cool.
Spoken like a true Roman.
It could use the compass in the phone. That'd be very exciting. My takeaway is here, like, don't be a jerk to someone on Twitter because they have a clock preference. Like, come on. The world is on fire.
Of all things, like, and I've said some pretty questionable things in my time in public. In terms of like things I dislike and things I like, but of all things, this one it just really surprised me.
But this is a typical thing about the internet. Like, it will always surprise you the things that upset people the most.
Yeah, I guess.
Like how many NASCAR fans we're going to hear from.
Ooh. Look, I don't have an issue with the NASCAR people.
It's too late now.
I need to clarify. I have this stereotypical image in my brain of the typical NASCAR announcer. And if we have any NASCAR announcers in the audience,
stereotypical view of the typical person.
It's very, very all kinds of typicals. If we have any NASCAR announcers in the audience and you feel, mischaracterized here, I'm sorry and I apologize. But
we'll give a personal apology to any NASCAR announcers that listen to the show.
Any NASCAR announcers in chat right now, please let us know.
Give us an F in the chat.
Okay. Also, shortcuts.
Before we move on from widgets, I don't know if you've got this too. I've seen people saying things on both sides. I have lost the weather widget from my iPad.
Reboot your phone.
I've done
that. It's going
that.
to come back. Oh, really?
Yeah, I've rebooted my iPad and the weather widget is still missing.
Oh, yeah, I think it's missing on the iPad.
Okay.
It was also missing on the iPhone, but then on the iPhone, if you restart the iPhone, it comes back. It doesn't come back on the iPad.
I know there's no weather app, but there was a weather widget, right?
I bet there's not going to be one because there's not a weather app.
But it used to just go to weather.com when you tapped it.
But now they've got the dark sky app. So where would they send people?
To apple.com/weather.
But the data isn't coming from dark sky yet, is it?
It is.
Now?
That widget has like the rain forecast, like micro forecast stuff in it, at least here in the US.
Literally an icon that says the weather channel in the bottom right left-hand corner.
They've merged it at least because it's doing stuff that old one didn't do.
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
But again, this is one of those things.
I think
like
in Europe,
American exceptionalism. It's not the same everywhere.
We got it's tricky because in America and I believe in Canada too, maybe also, I'm not sure, they're gonna get the precipitation alerts and stuff,
which is really annoying because dark sky was here. I could use dark sky data. In fact, I do.
You know, these companies, how they operate. Oh, we're gonna do it first in America, and then later, like years later, like is it the SpongeBob meme? Like 75 years later in Europe. Right now, I see the Weather Channel as the data source in iOS 14 on my phone. Doesn't say anything about dark sky.
I mean, look, honestly, I don't care because, like, as soon as the weather app that I want to use just puts a widget on, I'm going to switch over, but I just don't have that option right now. But it's still annoying.
I did get a couple of weeks ago a severe weather alert for Rome, Italy. It was very scary. Like, it was basically like strong winds are coming.
Was it one of the the system ones where it like makes a noise on your phone and stuff?
No. It wasn't one of those. But there was an exclamation point inside the weather app saying severe alert. And it was just,
Did you have like some rain? Like it's just like
some wind is coming. Like it's not like a tornado. It's like
it's not incredible outside.
It's not a perfect day for a beach. Here's an exclamation point.
Now my hair is not on point anymore. Thank you, weather app, for shortcuts. There's a new they added like a starter pack to shortcuts, essentially. But now in my case, I got 2 of these. I'm pretty sure it's a bug. But in the Shortcuts app in iOS 14, you will find this accomplishes 2 things, I believe. 1, it gives you some pre-installed shortcuts. And 2, those shortcuts will be placed in a folder called Starter Shortcuts. So Apple will actually show you that it's possible now to have folders, and they will give you some built-in pre-installed shortcuts in the app.
You know what I like about these?
What do you like?
They're complicated.
Yeah, these are like some of the Shazam shortcuts and the text last photo shortcut. These are already featured in the gallery. They were built by the workflow team years ago. They transitioned to the shortcuts gallery when the app was relaunched, and they're now going to be the starter shortcuts, which is quite cool. Because I remember like Ari and the guys building these workflows years ago, and they're still part of the sort of the onboarding process, if you will, which I think is really, really cool.
But they vary in complication between the 4 of them. And I just think that that's cool because maybe for people that aren't familiar with it, this will give them, like if they want to poke and look around, it's like they might realize that this is more powerful than they expected. Or what will probably happen is they'll be terrified of it and never want to use it.
One point of feedback on this, maybe, if I have 250 shortcuts already, maybe I don't really need the starter shortcuts thing to be added by default. Just an idea, because I'm guessing that if you see that a user has hundreds of shortcuts in the library already, maybe it doesn't need to happen by default.
Maybe you'll learn one day,
Maybe you're just one of those people. You're a shortcuts hoarder. You just accumulate shortcuts in the app. You don't really use them, but you like to have them there.
Did you also get a folder set up called home screen widgets?
I think it's just called widgets.
I have a folder that got set up called home screen widgets.
No, I don't have home screen widgets. Are you sure you didn't create that yourself?
Who knows, man? Maybe I did make it myself.
Anyway, and the other thing I wanted to mention is I'm still having some pretty bad performance issues with shortcuts in iOS 14, to the point where anytime I start working on a new shortcut, I need to wait like 2 minutes before I can search for any actions in the app. Like for 2 minutes, the editor is just blank, and any action I search for doesn't come up. Oof. And if I tap on any of the categories, it's a completely blank page. And then eventually, I can open shortcuts, open in the editor, go make a coffee, and then come back and start working on the shortcut. And
it's
I'm
just
not
giving
kidding.
You a break.
I'm honestly not kidding. So that's pretty bad. Hopefully we'll
Don't
get
make
fixed.
that a habit, or you're going to get yourself in trouble again.
Well,
right? Like every time you want to make a shortcut, you just go make a coffee, and you end up like on 20 coffees a day.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't want to be that person anymore. So I think that's it in terms of what's new. Well, no, there's this other thing. But Steven, can you actually talk about this one?
Wait 1 second before we do that. I had a bug that seems to have been fixed in shortcuts.
Oh, yeah? You did?
Which is any of my shortcuts that had a choose from menu option, which lots of my shortcuts that I run frequently do, every now and then it would just run incredibly slowly. Like I would tap it and would maybe wait like 30 seconds, or sometimes I would get a notification after a while that just said this shortcut took too long to run.
Oh, that's too bad.
And they're now running like they're being responsive now. So
nice. I believe I still have this issue, this other issue now that you mentioned this. Sometimes my shortcuts don't appear in the share sheet at all. Like in Safari.
I've had this. Yeah,
and I think it's still happening, unfortunately. So it's not unusual. Shortcuts is one of those apps that is so complex. It's not really surprising that during the initial stage of the beta season, it's very buggy. It's a very complex. It's possibly it's very complex. Like hundreds of actions, all kinds of different integrations across the system. It comes with the territory, I guess. But still, we're gonna mention those just in case anyone is listening and can pay attention to this. So yeah, I'm glad the menu stuff is fixed, Myke.
There is a little bit of a treat in this beta. So the rumors have been that the iPhone 12 will be two models, a smaller one and a larger one, perhaps around 5.4 inches. And the addition in this beta is the display zoom option. So this has been present on the 10s and 11 Pro Max, because you could say, I want to zoom in, and it basically switches from the regular 6.5 inch view to a 5.8 inch view, making everything bigger. That hasn't been on the 5.8 inch phones because there hasn't been anything smaller to zoom to. So on my 11 Pro non-Max, I don't have an option to change this to something that would be from a smaller phone. And it seems like in iOS 14 Beta 3, the iPhone 10, 10s, and 11 Pro, all the same size, now have this option for a zoomed-in interface. And 9to5Mac, of course, did the math and kind of figured it out. And it seems that this zoomed-in resolution would fit perfectly on a 5.4 inch iPhone. So I think those rumors of a 5.4 inch, smaller phone with the Face ID, the smaller iPhone 12, seems to be accurate.
Yeah, 960 by 2079. They were able to change it. It was kind of funny the way they worked it out. Is they kept forcing the iOS simulator to run at different resolutions, and this was the only one it didn't crash on. Which is kind of like a great way to find the answer to something. So yeah, it would indicate that, as you say, like it makes the phone smaller, so they've made it, which means that the phones that would be larger than it would be able to run display zoom at that resolution, because there is a step down. So this is, because they've created iOS at that smaller level, then bigger phones can take advantage of the fact that iOS runs at that resolution and use display zoom.
This makes me think that compact UI must be happening also because of this, right?
Well, that's compact UI.
So compact UI would be the idea that in iOS 14, it's like more of like an initiative, more like a marketing term that Apple is using to describe a bunch of changes. But this idea that many UI elements in iOS 14 are smaller and occupy less space on screen than before. So things like shortcuts when they run, or Siri when it takes up less space on screen.
I thought that might have been something like size classes or something like that, but now I know what you mean. Just the idea of
it's the idea of
the system taking less information away from
phone
you.
calls, obviously. So making sure that the UI can sort of recede a little, and if it's not necessary, don't come up in full screen, and maybe menus can be more compact. So you can see that also in the transition from action sheets to pull down menus in iOS 14. All that kind of stuff, I think it makes sense in the context of one of our phones, and quite possibly the phone that most people are going to buy, is going to be smaller. So I think it makes sense. And there's a bunch of other reasons, like we talked about this before, but I think also having the base model being slightly smaller than usual, I think it also helps, dictate this kind of direction.
I think it's great that people have more options for Face ID phones. Right now there's 3. 5.8 inches being the smallest is too big for a lot of people. And you have the SE kind of hanging out as the low-cost option. So I think this is going to be a pretty popular size. I think a lot of people are going to like this 5.4-inch size. Now, for me, using the iPhone 11 Pro 5.8 inches, I will buy the nicest phone because that's usually where the best camera stuff is, and I really care about that. But it looks like I'm going to have to give up this size and go a little bit bigger maybe. So we'll see how all that shakes out. But this is a really cool story, and I'm with you, Myke. I love the way they found this. I'm just killing the simulator over and over. I like the investigative work there by 9 to 5.
Yeah, it's nice when you can back up claims with actual facts and work. So,
well, Big Sur also got a beta update. They fixed the terrible battery icon in the system preferences. Just like, thank goodness that's been fixed. And it fixed an issue that I'd actually provided feedback on, is that I could not create a new Touch ID record. So when I set up Big Sur, I didn't have any Touch ID fingerprints on the system. I don't know why I had it in Catalina, but I couldn't add a fingerprint. I would hit the button and then it would just not do anything. And Beta 3 has fixed that for me, so I can use Touch ID again on my laptop. And it's interesting that Big Sur does not have a public beta yet, at least as if we're recording. I don't really know why. Apple hasn't said anything as far as I know, but at some point, I guess the public beta will show up. I kind of think that maybe it's related to the issue that if you upgrade from Catalina, or if you have a APFS volume on the same drive that Catalina's in it, Catalina will get software updates. Like, there's a lot of gotchas with the install, and maybe they're trying to iron that out before opening it up to a lot more people.
Mac public beta always seems interesting to me anyway.
Why?
Because I feel like that there's the potential for more risk.
Oh, on like the user side?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I think there is, because Macs can be configured in basically endless number of ways, and you have like weird utilities and stuff, where with iOS, maybe you kind of know what to expect a little bit more.
I feel like I would prefer, or I think it would be better to have it as like an open developer beta. So like you add a level in between, maybe. I don't know. Right, so it's kind of like you don't have to be in the developer program to get the beta, but you don't call it public beta.
Because when you think about it, who's the target audience for a macOS public beta? Like either
enthusiasts.
Are there really any?
What, Mac enthusiasts?
Like if you are a Mac enthusiast, or don't you have an Apple developer account? Don't you want the developer
but
beta?
Not necessarily everybody has the money, right, to put behind the beta program.
You may not want to be on, or you may not think the beta experience is worth the $99 a year, or whatever. So I think there are a lot of people who wait for the public beta, and I think the people who look at the public beta as being marginally safer than the developer builds. Now, we can debate that. I'm not sure that's actually true, but I think the people who feel more comfortable on the public beta release cycle than the dev beta, where they feel like things may be broken more often.
Like me as a 17-year-old, 16-year-old or whatever, I would have been bought the computer but wouldn't have the money to buy the, like the computer as a gift was like a gift for me or whatever. But I wouldn't have really wanted to put down the £100 or whatever to get the, I didn't have a job, so, right? So I didn't have the money to buy the developer account, so it would have been good for me that way, but it's niche cases. I'm going into niche cases here, but yeah. No watchOS public beta yet either. So the Mac and the Watch are in the same boat.
I wonder if the lack of open Apple stores in a lot of places in the world have factored into that, because as far as I know, they haven't changed the situation where, like, if your beta install fails, you can't recover it yourself. And I don't know. I just wonder if those two things are tied together, or if that's not an issue. Maybe they've fixed that this year. I don't know. I don't run watchOS betas.
Oh, I wouldn't either.
Not hip to that.
I do, but it's also because I like to live dangerously to an extent.
Yeah, that is just how you live your life.
Want to take another break?
Mm-hmm.
This episode of Connected is also brought to you by ExpressVPN. I think it's probably fair to say that we all browse the internet, and we like to do that without others knowing what we're doing, like our internet service providers. Yeah, you have incognito mode in Chrome or Safari or whatever, but online activity can still be traced. It doesn't matter where you get your internet from, your ISP can see every site you've ever visited. That's why you need ExpressVPN. It reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers, so your internet service provider can't see the sites you're visiting. It's available on all of your devices, phones, computers, even your smart TV. So there's no excuse why you shouldn't be using it. One thing about ExpressVPN that's fantastic is its speed. A lot of the systems really slow down your browsing. You can forget about streaming video in high quality, but ExpressVPN is shockingly fast. So go protect your online activity today with the VPN rated #1 by both CNET and Wired. Go to expressvpn.com/connected and get 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/connected to learn more. Our thanks to ExpressVPN for the support of the show and Relay FM.
Yo, Tichy, how's the review going?
Very strangely, I would say. So I started writing the review a few days ago.
Because you did something you don't normally do, which is you wrote a long article.
No, I usually do. See, everything is
Do you?
weird. I usually do, actually.
Huh.
But I do it when I'm coming back to Italy from WWDC, so it doesn't. It
and
doesn't
also,
really.
I think it differs. Like one year you wrote a review of an actual iPad.
Yes.
But
2017.
this felt very much like it would have been in the review, like a lot of what you wrote.
Which is why I'm gonna reuse it. Which is something that I do. I adapt things that I write early in the summer. No, it's different because when I write these articles in the summer, so I wrote something about the iPad OS 14 public beta. But when I do that, I do that when I'm coming back from the US to Italy. So it doesn't really eat into my time that I spend researching or taking notes or working on the mind map. And this time, it also didn't, but it happened at a very problematic time in that I had to make the decision to write something as I was on vacation. So I actually wrote this article at the beach in southern Italy while Sylvia and I and our dogs were on vacation. And Sylvia was kind enough and patient enough to let me do it, but it was very, very much non-optimal, I would say. Anyway, the review, I feel like I'm slower than usual. I feel like it's taking me a while to be fully inspired to work on some chapters. But I also feel like this is perfectly normal this year. And I feel like this is happening because I know that it's going to be a shorter review. I know that it's going to be more compact. I mean, I already worked out, like, I have the mind map completed. I worked out the number of chapters that we're doing. We're already working on the design assets for these fewer chapters. Like, I know it's going to be shorter and it's going to be less work. And so maybe that's why I feel like I can take it a bit easier. At the same time, there's the other half of my brain saying, no, you cannot take it easier because then you're going to be late and you're not going to meet your deadline. You're going to be screwed. It's going to be horrible. So I'm trying to balance these two voices in my head telling me that, look, it's fine. You can get it done. It's going to be shorter. And the other saying, no, you're gonna suck and you're gonna wait until the last minute. You know, basically the usual struggle. But also I feel like another factor to consider here is how the feature this year, which is widgets, is very much dependent on third-party adoption. Because, yeah, I can write about the Apple widgets, and I can do my comparisons with the older widgets from Apple in iOS 12, in iOS 13, and the widgets in iOS 14. But that's no fun. Like, I feel like people expect me to show off some examples of the cool stuff that's going to be possible.
So I know from my own personal experience in reading your reviews that through the beta period, I been using Apple stuff, and one of the ones that really I remember vividly about this was the new extensions in iOS 9.
Yeah, 8.
Where I actually, funnily enough, read this review on a Kindle on a beach in Palermo in Sicily.
Wow.
So I have lots of good memories about this specific review. But it was more about, like, I was on the beta and didn't really get to use many extensions, but then reading all of the extensions that you had had from third-party developers in beta really kind of helped drive home why this was important. Well, like, I feel like I could understand it in the abstract, but the actual specifics will be what really help this make sense for me.
Yeah.
So, like, it is a key of, like, and I wonder if this feature this year with the widgets is maybe, do you feel more reliant than other years, or is there always something like this where you feel like you have to have third-party apps to be able to write this section?
There is always something like this, but I feel like it's going to be more prominent with widgets because it is such a relatable feature for so many people.
And I think it's more design focused than other stuff too.
It's very much design focused, so it really lends itself well to lots of screenshots and images in the review, lots of visually showing off what developers can do. And I had this realization a few days ago. I started writing the review earlier this week. I wrote the introduction in one session one day. I felt really good about it. And then I moved on. I looked at the map. So I can tell you right now, there's going to be 9 chapters in total. So very compact review. Years ago, there was like one review that was like 20 chapters, I believe. It was not my best time. So it's going to be 9 chapters. And I was looking at it and I'm like, okay, chapter 2, setup and performance. I'm not going to make the same mistake as last year. Last year, I wrote it in July, like by this time last year.
Like a fool.
And then iOS 13 got worse during the summer. And
also the setup thing, I expect that they probably finalized that later in the period anyway.
Exactly. So I learned from my mistakes and like, I'm not going to write this one until late August or like early September, because I want to make sure that the setup images and the performance discussion is as close to the final version as possible. So I moved on to the next chapter, which is of course the home screen. And in looking at it, like as with last year, I am going to touch upon some technical aspects of widgets, but I don't want to, one of the lessons that I learned with iOS 11, it's not really fun to talk about APIs and really technical stuff in depth in a review. So
thank you.
Gonna have that gonna try and strike the same tone. At least I want to of last year and iOS 12, where I know the technical stuff and I will mention it, but only when necessary.
I want to try and see if I can make you feel better about something. A thought that I just had.
Okay.
I know that you are, rightly so, concerned about the timeline this year, right? Because you have to be ready for September.
Yeah.
Because you have no idea when iOS comes out, right?
Yep.
I think it's probably fair to say that iOS will come out later than usual, but we don't know that. But I think you would probably be pretty good to assume that. You shouldn't, but other people can, right? Like we can naturally assume that it will come later. So I bet that you get more third-party betas that you can run before iOS actually ships, because developers will be working on the same timeline that you are. Right, everyone's going to be like, if I want to be there day one, I need to make sure I'm ready for early September, even though I would bet that iOS doesn't come out until late September or early October, because the iPhone probably won't come out that time as well. So I bet you will be able to get more examples of stuff like widgets than you would in a typical review.
So a couple of things. First of all, I really hope you're right. And if anyone at Apple, even anonymously, can at some point this summer confirm this, that would be really exceptional for my mental health. Thank you. Second thing, I had this realization as I was looking at the map, and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to write about widgets. And then I looked at it, and I was like, this map is missing the really cool and interesting stuff, which is third-party examples. I can write about the Apple apps, also same discussion for sidebars on iPad, right? I can write about Apple's own sidebars, but really, where's the fun? I wanna write about the third-party adoption. So I put out a call on Twitter saying, if you're a developer, if you're working on widgets, if you're working on sidebars or 3-column layouts on iPad, get in touch. Let me know. Send me an email. Send me a tweet. And if you have, send me a beta. And so I spent the past 2 days basically replying to like hundreds of emails. I have all kinds of examples now. I already have a couple betas on my phone right now, actually.
I'm so jealous.
With third-party widgets. So that's really cool. And I have, in theory, lots more coming for, all these like kind developers getting in touch with me and saying, hey, I'm working on this. Like people showing me screenshots and like screen recordings of the simulator, which was very cool. So thank you if you got in touch. If you haven't gotten in touch but you're working on something, please get in touch because I can always use more examples. And yeah, I think this is really exciting because I really think this is going to be like the consumer feature, right? And I think it really should make for a fun section of the review where like, here's what this widget can do. And here's what this other developer has figured out how to do with the widget. Here's the design of it. Like I really can play around with a bunch of different examples and it should be fun. And the rest of the review, obviously, there's going to be an iPadOS section. And even there, as I mentioned, I'm going to show off a bunch of examples of sidebars and third-party developers doing things. And obviously, I'm going to talk about shortcuts. But I think it's pretty safe to assume that, the changes in shortcuts this year are not as massive as last year. Yep. So there will be examples, but you shouldn't expect the kind of massive chapter for shortcuts that I've had for the past 2 years with iOS 12 and 13. Because yes, there are some changes, but I mean, once you mention folders and once you mention the other stuff, like the new actions are not really groundbreaking. But even then, third parties can come in here and say, we're now using in-app intent handling, which is this new API that on the surface, it doesn't really sound exciting, but once you try it, it is incredible. I'm already playing around with a bunch of shortcuts actions made by third-party developers that use this new technology, which basically means shortcuts actions can now do a lot more powerful things in the background because of this new API. And so the other day I did something just wild, which was I created a wallet pass. So a custom pass for the wallet app using a shortcuts action that had like over 30 fields for parameters. So I could put in like custom images and titles and subtitles and captions and multiple fields. And this is like a very memory intensive thing to do. But thanks to in-app intent handling, the shortcuts action did it in like 5 seconds. And it spit out a wallet pass inside shortcuts. So yeah, that's going to be fun.
Can we go back to widgets a second? Because I just had a thought that I wanted to share, right?
Yes.
There has got to be no developer more happy right now than _David Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Because I recommend, by the way, people listen to the most recent episode of Under the Radar because it's very funny when _ flexes in a way that I never would have expected to hear from him, and it is absolutely fantastic.
Desire to like scare off people. Like if someone else was like, I wonder if about making something like WatchSmith, but for widgets, like I would hope that there would be less of an interest in doing that if they know that I'm going to do it too, because then you're like, it's like you're going to have a tough time out underscoring underscore. Like I am, you're never going to have as many widgets. You're never going to have as many options. Like this is what I do. So like, I kind of want to stake my claim and say like, this is what I'm working on. This is how I'm going to make it. Like, good luck trying to keep up. So that's sort of where I ended up on secrecy this summer.
I think that's the most you've ever flexed in public.
Yeah.
Because he is talking about like the position that he has found himself in right now, where he just happened to do a lot of the hard work last year with Widgetsmith and now can like really...
It just works now, yeah.
Yeah, with WatchSmith. And now he's making Widgetsmith, which that is something that he talks about on Under the Radar. But basically, he can use a lot of the stuff that he put into his wonderful complications app, which, like, when we all saw the complications thing, it was like, oh, amazing, Underscore's going to be so happy. And I'm sure he is, right, about the fact that you can put multiple complications on it now. But now, having done a lot of the brains to being able to create effectively a configurable widget application, because I guarantee there's going to be a lot of people that want to make that app, right? But no one's as far ahead as he is, because he's done a lot of what's needed, like knows how to make all these apps in Swift UI because that's what he had to do on the watch, and has created like the brains of this system to, like, I just think it's like a funny thing where like Underscore's found himself in like a very lucky position, because the things that he decided to turn his hand towards, Apple also agreed with things they wanted people to turn their hand towards. So, bravo to Dave.
Yes. So widgets will be really exciting, and right now I'm just trying to balance everything going on this summer, basically, with like my schedule and whether we want to go on another vacation or not, the fact that I have a tattoo to finish at some point, and writing the review in the middle, and also working on all the extra stuff for September or whenever that is going to be. So I really hope that at some point I will be able to get a sense of the timeline here, but I have to stick with my plan of I need to be done in early September, or I need to be in a very good place by early September at least. But as I mentioned, this is going to be shorter than previous years, just because of the nature of iOS and iPadOS 14. And I'm going to try and replicate the tone of the past couple of years, which is technical but not overwhelmingly so. And if anything, I think, judging from the introduction that just came out of me a few days ago, I think the overall tone of it is gonna be a lot more friendly, maybe is a good word to describe it, than previous years. I think it's very much, like, judging from the intro, it is very much a 2020 inspired review, if you know what I mean. Like, it's a review written in the current times, acknowledging the fact that 2020 is what it is. And, also from the angle that iOS 14, to an extent, you can see the reflection of that in some of the features of, a post-COVID world. So it is a product of the times, I guess, and I want it to be approachable, and I want it to be more compact than previous years, but also I want to do a bunch of cool stuff in terms of like extras and things surrounding the review. And also, like, I'm trying to figure out ways to, something that a lot of people that I've been thinking about actually for a few years now is, there's a lot of information in my reviews, right? There's a lot of details, but sometimes people just want to have like a page, like a list where they can go in and discover all these little tidbits, all these like hidden features and like smaller details. And so I'm thinking of ways of how can I make certain details from the review, like these little things, like if you long press this icon, something happens. Like, how can I make it more approachable to have like those tidbits from the review also be available standalone? Is also something that I'm considering this year.
I have no idea what you would do, but I would like that, because those little tidbits, they're like,
they get lost in the story.
They get lost, but sometimes they are some of the things that you would encounter on a daily basis that are better for you to use than, like, I don't know, something random. Like, you know what I mean? Like this deep stuff, right? Like these little things, they're like they make the experience of the operating system.
For example, I don't think nobody knows about, very few people know about this. Did you know that in iOS 14 you can hide contact suggestions from the share sheet? Like, the share sheet and the sharing suggestions for iMessage and stuff. If you long press one, you can now suggest less for that person or group.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about.
Like, I never need to send my mum things from there.
Yeah, same.
like I never text my mum a link, right? Like, so she doesn't need to be in this list.
Yeah.
That's good.
Check out this thing I found on Hacker News, Mom.
I know. Not needed. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So trying to think of better ways to extract these little things and make them accessible in outside of the review. Maybe just as simple as a separate article saying here's the 50 most interesting little facts from the review. Maybe it's just as simple as that, but it's something that I want to do.
They're also pretty good for sharing on social media, I reckon.
Yeah,
if that's
exactly.
the thing that you want to do.
Yeah, for sure.
We didn't even talk about the tools. We should keep that because I'm sure things change over time, but I want to hear more about the tools that you're using.
All right. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, we could talk about that later. I think that's probably it.
Sounds good. If you want to find links to the stuff that we spoke about, head on over to relay.fm/connected/304. While you're there, you can get in touch via email, or you can become a member and receive Connected Pro, an ad-free, extra-long version of the show each week. You can find us all on Twitter. Myke is there as IMYKE. Myke, name another podcast you're on.
Remaster with Federico. It's a video game podcast, like once a month.
Cool. So go check out Remaster if you want to hear these guys talk about video games once a month.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You can find Federico on Twitter at Viticci, Viticci. He is the editor-in-chief of MacStories.net. You can find me on Twitter as ISMH and my writing over at 512pixels.net. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Pingdom and ExpressVPN. Until next time, gentlemen, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Cheerio.
Bye, y'all.